Before we get into today's video, I'd like to direct your attention to the link in the description below to support the Black Lives Matter movement. There are petitions you can sign, places you can donate, things you can do if you have absolutely no money, and resources on how to educate yourself to be a better ally. Enjoy the video. What's up, guys? It's B Renee. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. You know it is August. We're still in Twilight month, and today we are talking about what used to be the angstiest book in the Twilight series, Stephenie Meyer's New Moon. I do believe it has been outpaced by last week's venture into Midnight Sun, but you tell me. I'm not doing categories again because this is a really short book. It's 25 chapters plus the epilogue, and there's too much to talk about. And also, like 50% of my notes are being pissed off at Stephenie Meyer for sexualizing underage Native American boys. And the other 50% is me as a 25-year-old woman lamenting the fact that Bella did not get therapy during the course of this book. And I'm not saying that like, oh my God, girl, you are crazy, you need therapy. Like, I'm like, this poor baby girl, 18-year-old girl, has had a psychotic break. Like, she's had a mental break, she needs help, and no one gives it to her. Let's just get into it. So before the prologue even starts, we get a Romeo and Juliet quote, and I was like, oh cool, like I forgot this is like loosely, you know, allegorical to Romeo and Juliet. No. Loose. This prologue is the most dramatic thing I've ever read in my life, and I reviewed Midnight Sun last week. My own life meant little. I was running to save something infinitely more precious. I was glad something bloodthirsty waited in the wings, for in failing at this, I forfeited any desire to live. When did Bella start talking like that? Chapter 1 is entitled Party. It opens with Bella having a dream, because did Stephenie Meyer invent the trope of dreaming in YA novels? The amount of dreams that Bella has that are pertinent to her story are ridiculous and so lazy. And anyway, the dream is that Bella sees her grandmother in the meadow and is like, oh my God, grandma. And then Edward comes up and he's sparkling in the sun. She's like, no, my grandma's gonna see you. And then she realizes she's staring in a mirror, and it's actually her, old and gross, because she's turning 18 and Edward is 17. So now she's older than Edward. So now she's having like this internal turmoil about getting older than him and not wanting to be much older than him. And I'm like, it is 1 year, and if you want to get technical about it, he is 110. She calls her birthday the Black Event, and I just wrote relax in all caps. I wrote, Bella is being a petulant child about her birthday, but the way Alice and Edward are like, oh well, I know you don't want a party, but go fuck yourself, we're having one anyway. If Bella was given a crumb, an iota of agency over herself and her life, maybe we wouldn't have these problems. Maybe she's smarter than you give her credit for, but we'll find out. College was plan B because Edward was so stubborn about leaving her human. Vampires can go to college. College should not be plan B. College can be part 2 of the plan, or you're just gonna have to be turned and then like never go do anything again, just like live in the house forever. Like, if the Cullens can go to high school, why can't you go to college? Bella's utter lack of self-esteem is front and center, and I'm not usually one to blame a man for a woman's self-esteem, but for her to say shit like, for some unfathomable reason he wanted to be with me, so anything else just threw us more off balance, like talking about him wanting to get her a better car or whatever. What is he not doing? Because like, you should be hyping her up. I don't know, that just, oh, I hate that. And again, young girls are reading this and being like, oh my God, it's normal for me to feel so inferior to my boyfriend, so if he makes me feel like that, that's totally normal, because Edward and Bella feel like that. Bad message, bad. They're talking about Romeo and Juliet in English, because of course they are, and she says, Romeo was one of my favorite fictional characters. Until I met Edward, I sort of had a thing for him. Romeo's a 14-year-old who kills himself because he's horny. So actually, no, I see that for you, Bella. They're watching Romeo and Juliet for English, and they're talking about like, oh my God, I would die without you, I would die without you. And he was like, yeah, when I thought James killed you, like I was making contingency plans. I was gonna go see the Volturi in Italy that are like our government and Carlisle's old friends, and I would have them kill me. And she's like, what? Like, why would you kill yourself? And he's like, because I love you, I'm not only without you. And she's like, you should never kill yourself. And he's like, well, would you kill yourself if I wasn't around? She's like, oh, I see. but also, would you want me to? And he's like, no. So they're both just like, oh my God, you don't kill yourself, I'm gonna kill myself. No, you don't kill yourself, I'm gonna kill myself. And it's like, so like the fact that you have this conversation and then in exactly 2 chapters, you're going to break up with her and leave her forever and tell her that you don't want her anymore is like, way worse than if you didn't know she wanted to kill herself if she didn't have you in her life. Dumb award actually goes to Edward. Charlie loves Alice because we all love Alice, but also because Alice helped Bella like shower and stuff when she had broken her leg. And the fact that Alice has seen Bella naked means that Edward, via Alice's thoughts, has definitely seen Bella naked, and you can draw your own conclusions from that. I'm trying to keep this video family friendly. The last real birthday any of us had was Emma in 1935. We're all excited, cut us some slack. But in Twilight, when Bella says, how old is Carlisle? You said, Edward, that he just celebrated his 362nd birthday. So what is the truth? You are not going to convince me in any timeline that Alice, any excuse for a party, Cullen, does not throw every single member of that family a birthday party every single year. Give me a fucking break. We have the party. Bella, I can't stop from hurting myself, Swan, gets a paper cut. Jasper tries to eat her, as one is wont to do. Edward throws her into a table covered in crystal, giving her a cut so bad that Carlisle has to stitch her up. All the family has to leave because they're like, we want to eat her now. And I'm just like, yeah, again, if Bella was allowed to have like any agency, this wouldn't happen. But everyone around her is so convinced that they know what's better for her than she does that things like this happen. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Twilight, when they go to the ballet studio and Bella's like bleeding out everywhere, aren't Jasper and Emmett the ones that are dismembering James like in the same room, like over there, like burning him? So Jasper's in the same room as Bella's bleeding out body, but a paper cut sends him off the deep end. Carlisle's stitching her up and talking about why Edward doesn't want to change her because he doesn't believe that vampires have souls. And I'm like, yeah, but you're so hard to kill that like, why does it matter what's going to happen in the after? Like, he's so worried about damning her soul. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not gonna die. Maybe that's just me. I'm not Soup's religion. Edward taking her home and being all quiet and brooding to the point where she feels like she has to apologize for getting a paper cut. And he gets mad. He's like, it's ridiculous that you should feel bad. And it's like, you're making her feel bad, dude. Like, you are the most confusing man. And then the iconic line, I would rather die than be with Mike Newton. Honestly, same. Then we get a real spicy moment for 13-year-old me. They go to her house, he gives her his present, which is a mix CD, but instead of being like a mix CD of songs, which we all used to make for our crushes back in the day, kids. We didn't make them Spotify playlists, we burned them CDs, okay? He made her a CD of him playing songs on the piano, which I was like, that's very cute. And then they make out on her bed. And we get the spicy, spicy line, which is tempting you more, my blood or my body? It's a tie. I gotta go. And then as Bella's falling asleep, she says, I felt no relief at the day ending, almost as if something worse were coming tomorrow. It was a silly premonition. No, it's called Heavy-Handed Foreshadowing by Stephanie Meyer. Chapter 3 is called The End. She really titled the chapter The End. And they have like the couple days of school where he's acting really weird and she's like having panic attacks over his behavior. And I'm like, girl, you are in danger. And she's thinking like, oh, me and him will just go away for a while, but it'll make my parents sad and that's not okay. And I'm like, oh, but becoming immortal and like having to fake your own death is gonna be fine. Okay. I don't understand why her thought process was like, we're gonna leave, we're gonna go away together and like it's gonna all blow over. I don't know, maybe it's because she could not comprehend the fact that he might leave without her, which like, girl, you about to find out what that feels like in real soon. It takes her to like the tree line of the forest and breaks up with her and or says that he's leaving and she's like, okay, we'll leave, like no problem. And he says, Bella, I don't want you to come with me. Brutal. You're not good for me. And she somehow spins that into you're not good enough for me. And like, ooh, this is not going well. And then what finally breaks her down is she hasn't seen Alice in a few days and he tells her that Alice isn't coming back. And I'm like, yeah, no, same. Like, the boyfriend's one thing, but like for her best friend to be his sister and then realize that she never even got to say goodbye. Perhaps it was really dark. Perhaps there was no moon tonight. Perhaps there was a lunar eclipse. A new moon. A new moon. I shivered. Twice. She said it. Twice. You cannot tell me that she named these books after the fact. I have to imagine she had the titles and she was like, okay, how many times? She was like, how many times can I say the titles of these books in the book? And Charlie being a sweet dad once they all find her, and like Sam Yuli helps to find her, and blah, blah, blah. And then her going up to her room. This bothers me a lot. Edward, going into her room after they break up and taking her presents, her pictures of him from her scrapbook, the CD he made her, and I didn't realize this until the end of the book, but the tickets that Esme and Carlisle bought her to go to Jacksonville, taking that stuff is so messed. So messed. I have opinions about that. And then we get the four most iconic pages in literary history, which are just October, November, December, January. And then chapter 4 is titled Waking Up.
Wake me up inside.
I tried to remember if I liked scary movies, but I wasn't sure. That feeling when you break up with your boyfriend of a few months and you lose your entire personality. Losing track of time was the most I asked for from life. And I wrote, hey bud, when I did that thing where I wasn't sure how I got to the place I was in, it was called disassociating, and I had to be put on antidepressants. And this, about to get on my mom's stool and talk to y'all about this, because this was where I started to get mad. We've established that 4 months have passed. I understand that mental health was a totally different conversation back whenever this came out, but holy shit, if your child spends 4 months in a stupor over a boy she dated for about the same time, you should have been taking her to therapy by the end of month 1. If your she thinks she sees the guys in Port Angeles who tried to gang assault her back in Twilight, and she starts walking over to them, and I just wrote, Bella, I fucking love almost dying. Swan is her name. Jessica's like, hey, are you suicidal? And Bella thinks about it, and she's like, no, I am responsible for my parents, and I promised the guy who broke up with me not to do something dumb. So those are the only reasons I am still alive. So technically I am not suicidal. I'm not saying that Bella needs to be a role model, because characters are allowed to have flaws, and that's more interesting. But this girl needed mental health assistance very badly, very badly. And she never gets it. And when she steps towards those guys, this is the first time she hears Edward's voice. And I wrote, damn, this is sad. And she says this line about forbidden to remember, terrified to forget, and this is my diatribe. This is why him taking her pictures and her CD bother me a lot, because if she wants to think about you, let her. You're leaving her and taking her future that she had planned for herself, so let her listen to your CD and cry. Let her have a picture of you to remember. The reason she won't leave Forks and go live with her mom is because like she's scared if she leaves Forks, she won't be able to hold on to the pieces of him that she still has. So I'm like, if she had a photo of you, she could leave, go live with Renee, get out of the place where you made all your memories. Chapter 5 is entitled Cheater. This is the first time we hear about her nightmare where she's wandering through the forest. To me, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I do have post-traumatic stress disorder. And for me, dreaming of the place where the traumatic thing happened, or dreaming about the traumatic thing happening, was a big symptom of my PTSD. As a young person reading this, I was like, this girl is so emo. But as a 25-year-old, I'm like, baby, let me help you. I have a great therapist. I will give you her phone number. Pulls over because she's having a panic attack. She sees the motorcycles on the side of the road, and she says sometimes kismet happens. And this is the first time I ever read the word kismet, and it is one of my favorite words. Just thought I'd throw that in there. My dad, the cop, sees way too many kids smeared on the road because of motorcycle accidents here in this super rainy mountainous town. Better buy one, because fuck my dad, even though all he's trying to do is like help me through this problem time in my life. Like, I don't give a fuck if he cares about my life, because I sure don't. She takes the motorcycles to Jacob Black, who turned into a mega cutie. He is of course down to fix up the bikes and give her lessons because he has a mega crush on her, which she knows. Jacob starts talking about his friends, Quill and Embry, and Bella says those are unusual names. you know, keep your opinions to yourself. The boys show up and start talking about the bikes, and she says, I figured I needed a Y chromosome to understand the excitement. I don't know, Bella, you bought the bikes. You understand that bike go fast, vroom vroom, fun fun. Like, I don't know what you mean by that. She says Jake is giving her riding lessons, and Quill whispers something in Embry's ear, which makes Jake slap him. And I giggled. That is the raciest that Stephenie Meyer ever gets, and I enjoyed it. She doesn't have nightmares that night for the first time in 4 months. I wish with all my heart that Jacob could have stayed the sweet boy who was her friend when she really needed one and never sexually assaulted her or fell in love with her infant daughter. Anyway, she says Jacob was an earthbound son sharing his happiness with everyone around him. And I am so sad that he doesn't stay that way. They stay for dinner at Billy's and the Clearwater family is there. And she says Leah, the daughter, was beautiful in an exotic way because this was written by a white lady. Oh, and we also meet baby Seth Clearwater, who I would die for. She has the PTSD dream, but this time Sam is there. His shape seemed to Shiva and changed in my peripheral into a wolf. Maybe because Bella is somehow prophetic in her dreams, and the dreams really get me. I'm not gonna lie. So the bikes are done, and her and Jake are like driving to go take the bikes out, and they see the cliff divers, or Bella sees the cliff divers for the first time. Jake's like, yeah, that's Sam Yulee and his gang, and they're like tribe protectors and blah blah blah, and every time one of my friends joins Sam's gang, they stop talking to me, and like he's like kind of freaking out about like being pressured to join the gang, and Bella's like, oh shit, like this is serious stuff, but also she's like, I want to jump off that cliff. As someone who had a panic attack on the Tower of Terror at Disney World, I'm not jumping off shit, but I'm also not getting on a motorcycle, so like, rest in peace to Bella, but I'm different. Chapter 8, Adrenaline. These chapter titles are pure ass. She was just like, what's a word I say in this chapter? That's the title, whatever. She says, I had already lived through the worst thing possible, and she's referring to Edward breaking up with her, and I'm like, yeah, but you know what? I remember in the last book, you got like brutalized and almost murdered by a sadistic vampire, and had to spend weeks in the hospital, and like, that seems slightly more traumatic. That seems like what you should be having nightmares about, but like, that's just me. I don't know. They ride the bikes, and she hears Edward's voice, and it surprises her, so she lets go of the clutch, and she fucking crashes, and the bike falls onto her, and blah, 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 and she's like, let's do it again. Jacob's like, no, you're bleeding from your head, so he takes his shirt off to stifle her wound, and thus begins the pattern slash fetishization of Jacob never wearing a shirt. And I'm just like, hey, Stephenie Meyer, why did you do this? Because you know what it led to, like real life repercussions, was the fact that Taylor Lautner in these movies was horrifically sexualized by grown women, named one of the sexiest men alive when he was like 17 years old, went through like horrific, rigorous like training and dieting to look like hot Jacob Black for these old women to sexualize this. If this was happening, oh my God. I was like, I really want to find this meadow I found one time. Jacob's like, I can help you because he's a native boy, one with nature. I hate Stephenie Meyer for this. Like, I gave this woman 14 doll hairs and 99 copper pennies so that y'all could get your Midnight Sun ha-has last week, and I'm like, I hate myself for it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I hate that I gave this woman any more money after she did this. Like, Jacob says something like, bears don't want to eat us, we don't taste good, but I bet you're an exception. I'm like, why would he ever say that? Chapter 9 is entitled Third Wheel, and she says like she was a lost moon. Shut up. She's like, oh my God, I gotta put some distance between me and Jacob. I'm gonna say I'm gonna go to the movies with some friends, but then he looks sad, so now I'm inviting him. And then they have this conversation about Mike, and Jacob's like, is that the guy who thought you were his girlfriend? And she says, some people are hard to discourage, like you, you know? And then he says, then again, sometimes persistence pays off. And she's like, most of the time it's just annoying. And it's like, yeah, Bella, but like, you are encouraging him a lot. Yeah, they're at a scary movie, and her and Jacob are laughing, and Mike's like getting grossed out. How was I ever gonna fight the blurring lines between us when I enjoyed being with him so much? Just make your boundaries clearer, which you are absolutely not doing. So that's cool. Mike gets sick, and Jacob says, what a marshmallow. You should hold out for someone stronger who laughs in the face of carnage. Like, we get it, Jacob. We know that you like her. He holds her hand and then she tries to pull away and he grabs her wrist. He's like, hold on just a minute, Bella. I'm like, Charlie, when did you get here? You sound, are you, what? He's like, you like me, right? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, more than any of your other friends. And she's like, yeah, I like you the best, but like just as a friend. He's like, that's okay as long as you like me best. I'm prepared to be annoyingly persistent. I don't think that's what she needs from you, Jacob. I think she just needs a friend, but like, go off. She said, I can't imagine how I would not like being with you. Just don't expect more. Narrator voice. He did, in fact, expect more. Jacob asked something heartlessly. Mike glared malevolently. Jacob said something dully. There was a lot of lees happening. Again, this is where I was like, she found the thesaurus. The metaphor about her being a condemned house and how no one can come inside is good in theory, but in execution, it just makes her sound like a used woman, if you know what I mean. And then sweet baby Jacob's like, I know you hurt, but I'm always here for you and I'm never gonna let you down. You can always count on me. I will never hurt you. Which was very sweet, but narrator voice, he did in fact end up hurting her. She says, I would always love him and it would never ever be enough. And I'm like, for the first time in this book series, Bella is right. Selfish, but right. Chapter 10 is Meadow. Billy says he's taking Jacob to the doctor and Bella doesn't believe him, which I'm like, why not? There's a lot of undercurrents of like, they said something later about like Billy can't afford to get Jacob a new pair of shoes, and I'm just like, and that Billy's house is so small and Jacob's room is like a closet and it's all so small and tiny and dingy and I'm just like, the coding of Native Americans as poor and not responsible is irresponsible. Since Jacob is gone, the nightmares are coming back, and I am once again asking this girl to go to therapy instead of relying on a 16-year-old boy to fix her trauma. He's better, but he didn't call her, and she gets mad. She's like, I was lonely, worried, bored, perforated. Perforated? Charlie tells her to stay out of the woods because there's like a bear running around, but this chapter is called The Meadow, so I'm going to assume that she does not in fact stay out of the woods. She doesn't have Jacob's magical native savage nature sense, but somehow finds the meadow on her own really, really fast, even though it took her and Edward hours to hike through the meadow, or the woods to find the meadow in Twilight. It doesn't matter. I don't know if you've noticed, Stephanie Meyer, I don't think even read Twilight before she wrote this, because like, there's a lot of behaviors that don't match up, but like, whatever, it's fine. She finds it and her head swirls dizzily, and then when she sees Laurent, she has a dizzying array of emotions. You got that thesaurus, bitch. What happened to it? What happened? Did you lose it this day? I don't understand. He lets it slip that Victoria wants to kill Bella, mate for mate, because Edward killed James, which was her mate. You must not mean very much to him since he left you unprotected. Fucking savage. She's hearing Edward's voice, and it says, beg. My hallucination begged. Again, she lost her thesaurus on this day. The wolf is here. And then I wrote 3 wolves, and then I wrote 5. As the reddish brown wolf stared at me, I suddenly thought of Jacob. Glad I hadn't brought him here with me. Boy, do I have some news for you. So here's a mini diatribe of why I truly don't think that Stephanie reread Twilight before she wrote New Moon, because Laurent tells Bella he's here getting the lay of the land for Victoria. In Twilight, the reason James knows where to go is because Edward says this on the phone to Bella, that Victoria was all over Forks, breaking into the school, finding Bella's records, and that's how she got the mom's address. So you are telling me, you want me to believe Victoria went to Forks, broke into the school, found out where Bella's mother lives in another state, did not find Bella's current address, and doesn't know Forks well enough that she has to send Laurent to get the lay of the land? She was already in Forks in Twilight, digging up info on Bella for James. It is super duper fucked that the Cullens would leave Forks knowing that Victoria was still out there and might want revenge for what they did to James. But the Cullens share 2 brain cells and 1 iota of common sense between the 7 of them, so I'm not surprised in the slightest, actually. In chapter 11, Bella talks about wanting to leave because she's scared about the vampires, but then she says, I shuddered at the thought of dragging my lethal shadows into my mother's safe, sunny world, which I liked that line a lot. My thing is, why would you, the Quail leader people, not tell these boys that they might turn into fucking werewolves? Why wouldn't you warn them? Why wouldn't you be like, hey? So just a heads up, our legends are true. Depending on who your like ancestral line is, you might turn into a monster. Bella says the hole in my chest ached hollowly. I didn't know hollowly was a word, but go off. Jacob hissed, and then Bella hissed back. That's what I was talking about earlier. Bella snapped, Jacob snapped back. Okay, why don't you blame those filthy, reeking bloodsuckers you love so much? And I wrote fatality. And then that's when I realized that the wolves come back. When the vampires come back, it's like a genetic thing of like, our enemy is near, we must protect. And like, bah, they pop off and become werewolves. But I'm still like, y'all knew the Cullens moved back. As soon as you knew that they moved back, fucking start telling the boys, like, hey, heads up, might start turning into werewolves. Sorry. And then she says, I wish I could change how I feel about you, Jacob, because she's so desperate for him not to blow her off that she's like, I can try to love you the way you love me. And I'm like, you manipulative bitch. Like, I cannot deal with the mistreatment of Jacob Black. It's enough. She comes home all upset, and then Charlie calls Billy and is like, what the fuck happened? Like, blah, blah, blah. And then he says, what do you mean I don't know my daughter as well as I think I do? Who says that out loud? It's very silly. And then she wakes up because she hears something scratching against her window, and it is Jacob in the tree. Chapter 12. And she's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to keep my promise. I promised I wouldn't hurt you. So he comes in the room and he's like, I know you have a secret you can't tell anyone, not even me. And he keeps trying to tell her what's going on, but he like physically can't. And he reminds her, he's like, remember that day we met and like I told you those legends? And she's like, yeah, about the cold ones. He's like, yeah, do you remember all of them? And she's like, I don't. He's like, of course you only remember the one that pertains to that guy. I know. Okay, but try to think about the rest of them and then let me know if you figure it out, because I can't tell you what's going on, but you can figure it out. I'm like, you're giving Bella a lot of credit. And then she has a dream that pertains to exactly what she needs to know, because yeah, she always does. Same dream she had back in Twilight, except now when Jacob turned into a wolf in this dream, he looks like the one from the meadow. And she's like, okay, my best friend is a werewolf and my first love is a vampire. What the fuck does this say about me? I said, ma'am, it says that you ignore your self-preservation instincts, which keeps other humans away from all of these mythical creatures. You're just like, actually, no, I would love to fuck a monster. So like, let's do it. So she goes to confront Jacob and she's like, you're a monster. He's like, you're a hypocrite. You were dating a monster. Like, what? I don't know why you're so mad. And then it comes out that she thinks they're the ones killing the hikers, and he's like, no, we're hunting this vampire who's running around killing all these hikers. And she's like, oh. And Jacob says, who's afraid of the big bad wolf? And I threw up in my mouth. It's fine. Chapter 14, family. These were just 4 really big half-naked boys. Why would you say that? Why would you say that? If the Cullens bite a human, the treaty is null and void and we can fight them. In not so many words. Embry tells Bella not to stare at Emily, and Bella's like, oh, because she's so pretty. And then we find out that Emily has a horrific wolf injury down the left side of her face. Oh, and guess who mauled her? Guess which wolf mauled her? Her fiance, Sam. Her fiance that she's still with. Brutalized and mauled her and maimed her for life. We love domestic abuse allegories in which the victim stays with the abuser. That's all thinly coded as uncontrollable mythological behavior. She dreams that she and Emily are holding hands, waiting for their wolves to come home. This is why I don't think you can deny, as Bella tries to do in Eclipse, that she really did fall for Jacob in this book. And it makes the fact that he turns into a literal monster in Eclipse that much worse. If he'd been friend-zoned all along and she really, like she says in her like internal monologue with us that we're just friends, I need to make those boundaries clear, like I'm trying to make sure that he knows I don't want anything else, but like she doesn't act that way. She says it at the movies and then like she turns into his girlfriend. She doesn't negate when somebody was like, oh yeah, Jacob had to bring his girlfriend into the wolf thing. She doesn't say like, I'm not his girlfriend. And when he says he can't see her anymore or whatever, she literally says, are you breaking up with me? Think about Eclipse from Jacob's perspective, or like at least the end of New Moon from Jacob's perspective. He got dumped out of the blue for his mortal enemy and then continued to be used as a friend and protector by his ex. Like that's what happened to Jacob from his point of view. Yeah, chapter 15 right away. I suppose I looked like his girlfriend from the outside, but me and Jacob knew how it really was. And I wrote, you're giving a 16-year-old boy way too much credit here. I knew Jacob would love if things were how they appeared, but I didn't give a fuck and I kept blurring the lines because he made me feel good and I needed him to distract me. Mean. Mike and Bella are at work and Mike's like, the guy's head over heels for you. And she says, life is complicated. And he says, and girls are cruel. See, Bella, when you force me to agree with Mike, nice guys finish last Newton, I need to fight you. I need to physically fight you, you fictional character. They're in his garage, Jacob's garage, after a family dinner with like Charlie and like other people, and Jacob gestures at his bare torso, and I have to wonder if he was shirtless during the entire dinner. And I wrote, why? Why, Stephanie, did you decide that the giant brown, savage, underage boys didn't wear clothes? Please tell me, Stephanie, because I know why, but to accuse you of fetishizing Native American children is accurate. Bella hangs out with Emily a little bit, who is the perfect little housewife, of course. It was so easy to be around here. After all, we were both wolf girls now. I wrote, ma'am, you are dating Jacob. Stop playing. Jacob finds her all sad and is like, oh, we gotta do something fun. Let's go cliff diving like you wanted. And she's like, yeah, Edward's gonna talk to me if I do that, so let's fucking go. But when she comes back the next day, Victoria's out and about, so the wolves are gone. So she goes to the beach and sees this nasty storm brewing, and she's like, I feel really claustrophobic. I was really looking forward to hearing Edward's voice. I'm gonna go cliff dive by myself. By myself.
By myself.
She jumps off of like 100-foot high cliff and falls in the water, and she's like, whoa, it's so fun. And I'm like, the impact of that water should have killed her or like broken her leg. I don't, nope, nope. She jumps into a riptide. Bella, I do not value my life, swan. Edward Delusion is telling her to swim, fight, stay alive, and she's like, I don't think I will. She's like, this is easier. Why would I fight when I was so happy where I was? I'd forgotten what real happiness was. Chapter 16 is called Paris, like Paris from Romeo and Juliet, who is Juliet's second choice. So guess what this chapter's about? Jacob saves her from drowning because he came back. Harry Clearwater had a heart attack and everyone is at the hospital with him. Because I wonder what Juliet would have done if Romeo had left her. And I wrote, literally shut the hell up. Romeo and Juliet were 14-year-olds. She would have gotten over it. I wondered if she would have married Paris in the end. What if Paris had been her friend? What if he was the one who understood and loved her? I have seen some heavy-handed literary allegories in my day, you guys. I read after for sobbing out loud, okay? But this is an abomination. Maybe Juliet should have tried to settle into the leftover scraps of life that have been left behind. Jacob is leftover scraps. Please hold. I am about to go fight a fictional character. Harry died. Jacob takes Bella home to be with her father, who's grieving the loss of a friend, and to protect her from an enemy. And the whole time she's debating whether or not to try and be with him romantically. She's literally so close to kissing him when they get to the house. And she says, she thinks the line, could I betray my absent heart to save my pathetic life? Is that not a My Chemical Romance song? It should be. Jacob gets to Bella's house. He freaks out because he smells a vampire, but then Bella sees Carlisle's car and she's like, it's not Victoria, it's Carlisle, let me out. And she says, Jacob watched dawn break across my face. And I said, shut up. He refuses to take her back. He's like, take yourself back. And first of all, don't blame him. Like, second of all, but couldn't it be a trap, Jacob? Like, wouldn't you feel real bad if it was a trap and she died? I don't know. Just bye, Bella. I really hope you don't die. Iconic. Chapter 17 is called Visitor. The visitor is Alice. It's Alice Cullen. She is back in the building because she saw Bella jump off the cliff and thought she killed herself and was like, oh shit, I need to go help Charlie because this is bad. Alice says, he was a fool to think you could survive alone. I've never seen someone so prone to life-threatening idiocy. And I wrote, drag her, Alice. Anyone else would be better off when the vampires left town, but you have to start hanging out with the first monsters you can find. Oh, and then Alice says, you look like hell, Bella. And Bella says, I drowned today. So funny. I love their dynamic so much. Bella wakes up to hear Alice and Charlie talking about what happened when the Cullens left. It's super bleak. Charlie's like, I can still hear her screaming in her sleep. Charlie says, Bella acted like someone died. And she says, I died. The future I wanted died. And I was like, girl, you dated him for like 4 months. Chapter 18 is the funeral. Jacob comes to tell her that he can't protect her in Forks if a Cullen is around, but he really just wants to know if all the Cullens, aka Edward, is gonna come back or not. Jacob is about to kiss Bella, and Bella's like, might let it happen. True love was forever lost. The prince was never coming back to kiss me awake from my enchanted sleep. And I wrote, blech. The phone rings and interrupts the almost kiss, and Jacob answers saying Charlie is at the funeral. And Bella's like, who is that? And he's like, Carlisle. And Alice comes back. She says, I had a vision and it's not fucking good. Basically, Rosalie told Edward that you killed yourself. So Edward is on his way to Italy to go kill himself. And he's crying because he's so worried the Volturi are gonna kill her. He's crying. Like, Jacob fucking cares about you. Oh, I hate it. I know you can't control how you feel about someone, but like, Jacob Black deserved better. 2K20. Chapter 19 is called Race. They're on the plane to Italy and Alice lifted the phone on the back of the seat in front of her. Did this used to be a thing? The first time I ever flew was in 2014, so I literally have no idea if there used to be phones on planes. That's crazy. Edward has decided to walk out into the sunlight and expose his vampiric skin to the humans, but he's leaning toward the melodramatic, so he's waiting till noon in the town square because he's a drama queen. We know that. Chapter 20, they end up with only like 2 minutes to get to Edward, and she runs into him just before he steps into the sun, and he thinks he's already dead and in heaven, and he quotes Romeo. I hate this book so much. I'll have to go into the Volturi courtroom type deal because Jane shows up, and Jane's a scary bitch, so they're like, oh, we gotta do what she says. Arrow sounds terrifying with his papery skin and milky red eyes, but he also sounds batshit crazy, and I want to hang out with him. Arrow can hear every thought you've ever had, but he has to be touching you, so he's jealous of Edward's distance ability. Marcus can see relationships. He's another member of the Volturi, whatever that means, and he's surprised by the intensity of Bella and Edward's relationship because of Bella being la tu incantante, which we later find out means the singer. Or if you spoke Italian, maybe you knew that, but I didn't know what it meant, and it means they call Bella my singer because her blood sings for me. Arrow touches Bella to see if he can see her thoughts since Edward can't, but Arrow cannot. He makes Jane do the pain thing on Bella, but it doesn't work on her. And now Arrow's like, oh man, you should stay with us and we'll turn you. And everybody else is like, what? And he's like, dude, the potential, like she's super gifted. She doesn't want to stay with the Volturi, obviously, and the other Volturi are like, well, she knows too much and you won't turn her, so she has to die. And so then Alice is like, I'll turn her, like, you don't want to piss off Carlisle, like, I'll turn her, I promise. Here, I'll show you, and like touches Arrow, and he's like, wow, okay, you will, I believe you, go home. But they will be checking in to make sure Bella gets turned. The image of Bella and Edward on a cross-continental flight, just like touching each other's faces, is very funny. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night over the Atlantic Ocean and you look across the aisle of the plane and you just see, you know that Vine?
What the fuck? Is this allowed? What the fuck? Is that allowed?
And at the airport, there's a reunion with the Cullens and I turned into a puddle of tears because Esme was like, don't ever scare me again. And Edward says, sorry, Mom. Oh, my heart. And then Rosalie's there and she apologizes to Bella and thanks her for saving her brother. And I was like, Rosalie! Oh, Charlie is so fucking mad at Edward when he pulls up to the house. He's like, get your hands off of her. Ah, and he's mad and I love it. Bella is shook that Charlie would ban Edward from the house. And I was like, Bella, if I was your cop father and he rolled up at my doorstep after you've been missing for 3 days and he's carrying you like you're dead, I would have shot him in my backyard. Because Edward's eyes were sad, my eyes were mad, but you can't see your own eyes. I don't know how you knew your eyes looked mad. She's like, listen, you can't feel guilty if something happens to me. You need to live your life. I need to live my life. You need to understand things are gonna happen to me. I'm a human being. So like, don't go try to kill yourself because you feel guilty. And he gets super pissed, calls her by her full name, which I hate, and is like, I didn't want to die because I felt guilty. I wanted to die because you were dead, because I still love you. And he says, I'll never criticize Romeo again. Like, shut the fuck up. Shut up. I hate it so much. Oh, and then he says, you seem to be under a misapprehension. I can't live in a world where you don't exist. And she's like, you literally broke up with me. So like, I don't understand. He's like, I'm a good liar. I have to be. No, you're not. No, you're not. Because in Twilight, again, Stephanie, read the book you wrote, he couldn't even convince Bella that he wasn't not human. Like, within 3 chapters, she was like, something's fucking weird with this guy. And he could not hold it together. He could not keep it a secret from her. Like, he couldn't. So, no. No, you're not a good liar. She says tears ooze out of the corners of her eyes. Okay, certain words have certain connotations. Do you know what oozes? Wounds, pus, not tears. Not tears, guys. She's like, well, I believed you because it never made sense for you to love me. I just would love just a crumb of self-esteem for Bella. That would be super cool. He tries to kiss her and she asks him not to because it'll be too hard for her when this is over. And he's like, do you still love me after everything? And she's like, yeah, that's a stupid question. So then he kisses her anyway, even though she just asked him not to. He says I'll never leave her again because the only reason he had left was to keep her safe and it didn't work, so she had no reason to try again. And she's like, I don't believe you. You're gonna do what you think is right. Like, I don't believe you. And he's like, nah, I was already gonna come back. I was miserable. I was gonna beg you to take me back. So it's like, oh, so this was all for nothing. This was all just to put Bella through a lot of trauma. Got it. Cool. It's something like, you'll be 30 before the Volturi think to check on you again. And she's like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna be. Now your whole family's in danger. Now I'm in danger. You're being crazy about this. I'm gonna go to your house and we're gonna vote on if I stay human or if I turn. Because you are so like hell-bent on keeping me human, even though the government of the vampires just said, if you don't turn me, they're going to kill all of us. Like, make it make sense, sir. Do you want me to live or what? She tells him about hearing his voice and the hallucinations, and she comes to the realization that hearing his voice when she was in danger meant that they really do have an unbreakable bond and that he never stopped loving her. Baby, no, you had a mental break. Edward's like, hearing voices isn't even that bad. At least you were strong enough to pretend. I was just curled up in a ball for the last 6 months. Like, I just let the misery have me. Like, that's much worse than hearing voices. And I was like, we're really having a who was more emo and dramatic during our breakup contest. Edward walks into the Cullen house and calls everybody's name one by one instead of just being like, family meeting. Bella takes control of her autonomy for the first time in the series, sits everybody down at the table, and is like, hey guys, I'm cool with being turned. And it will be unsafe for us if the Volturi find out I don't get turned. But Edward's not into it because he doesn't want to damn my soul. However, again, the Volturi are gonna come check and see if I get turned or not. And if I'm not, it will be bad news bears for me and everyone else. So let's vote. But she does it in a very manipulative way, where she's like, if you don't want me as part of your family, I'm going back to Italy alone. So the Volturi won't come here and hurt you or my dad. If you don't want me, I'll go on my suicide mission. So like, what are they supposed to say? Edward loses his shit. He starts breaking stuff. He freaks out. And Alice is like, I don't know how to do this and not kill you. So like, can we hold off? And then Carlisle's like, I'll just do it right now. And Edward's like pouting, arms crossed over his chest, and is like, so what are you gonna, like, your dad is gonna wake up in a couple hours and you're gonna be dead. What are you gonna do about that? And she's like, shit, you're right. So then Edward's like, let's barter. Let's wait till you finish school, move out of the house, and then we'll change you. And everybody's like, okay, summer after graduation, Carlisle's gonna change me. Cool beans. And then Edward takes her back home and is like, hey, what do you want most in the world besides being changed? And she's like, well, I want you to change me, which I'm like, why? Doesn't matter. Carlisle changed everyone except Alice and Jasper. Why does it matter? And then I realized, is it because she wants like his teeth and his venom inside her? Like, ew. And he's like, okay, then just marry me first. You just got back together 1 minute ago, and you're confused on why she is hesitant. You can tell this is his first relationship. He don't know what's, nope, we have lost the plot. Carly comes check on Bella, and you're in so much trouble, blah, blah, blah. You have to stay away from Edward, and Bella's like, if you want me to stay away from him, I'm just gonna move out. And again, I'm like, Charlie, you're a cop. If Edward was a normal boy, you could kill him and get away with it. And then we get the epilogue and we find out Bella is super grounded, but Edward has designated visiting hours because Charlie doesn't want Bella to move out. So it's like, okay, you can go to school and work and your boyfriend can come over. So like, not really that grounded, except she can't really go see Jacob. And Jacob hasn't come to see her. And Edward's like, probably a good thing because he'd probably try to fight me and I don't want to kill your friend. And Bella's like, oh yeah, in the play, Romeo and Paris fight, Paris falls. I'm like, can we go through one chapter without a heavy-handed Romeo and Juliet reference? Who let this pass? Who let this through? Who looked at this book and was like, yeah, this is a reasonable amount of Romeo and Juliet references. Shut up. Oh my God, please help me, somebody. And when I get to her house, her motorcycle is outside because Jacob has ratted her out to her dad, petty Betty that he is. She's like, how could he do this to me? Jacob was supposed to be my safe harbor. And I'm like, that ship sailed when you got back with your ex that's his mortal enemy, babe. And Bella was like talks to Jacob and she's like, you know, you could have given Charlie a heart attack. He's not that much younger than Harry. And Jacob completely, like, his bad boy, like, hard-ass persona totally crumbles because of course he didn't think about that because he's 16 years old and he just wanted to, like, be vindictive and not think about the consequences. Edward says Jacob wanted to get Bella grounded. Bella's like, I'm already grounded. Why do you think I haven't come to see you? And Edward's gleams from Jacob's mind that Jacob figured Edward wasn't letting her come see him. Bella's like, that's ridiculous. And I'm like, no. Give it a couple chapters into Eclipse. Edward will be breaking your truck to keep you away from Jacob. It's not that ridiculous. Jacob says to remember the treaty, that the Cullens can't bite a human or it'll be war, and it's bite, not kill. And Bella's like, mind your business, and Jacob comes this close to phasing and, like, turning into a wolf and fucking fighting Edward right then and there because he's like, you're gonna be one of them, no! Like, freaking out. Which, like, yeah. And then Charlie is like, Bella, I hear you. Get your stupid ass in this house right now. I'm grounding you forever for this motorcycle shit. And then it kind of, like, breaks the tension between everybody. And Bella's like, you promised still friends. And Jacob's like, I don't know how to keep that promise anymore. And he, like, reaches out for her across the trail and he's like, miss you. And she reaches out, she's like, miss you. But Edward won't let her near Jacob because he's afraid he's unstable, which is like, oh, so sad, so bad, so not good. Last line is, I squared my shoulders and walked forward to meet my fate with my destiny solidly at my side. So yeah, final thoughts. I don't have many. This book was hard to read, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I had to sit down yesterday and just finish it, and that's all I did all day was just finish it because it's sad. It's messy, it's problematic, it's frustrating. It does really reinforce to me, like, why so many people were Team Jacob, because I remember Jacob as being like, Eclipse, I'm gonna kill myself if you don't kiss me, Jacob, which I was like, why did people like this guy who's so manipulative and terrible? And then I was like, oh, there's no one in this that isn't manipulative and terrible. At least Jacob didn't start out that way. Do you know what I mean? Like, at least I can see the roots of Jacob and Bella's friendship are much more equally matched to me, and problematic stereotypes aside with the Quileutes, the Wolfpack guys are, like, actually teenagers and, like, appropriate for Bella to be hanging out with. I don't know. It's just, I get it now. So that was New Moon. Next week, we are going to be continuing the Twilight month with Eclipse. I've already started reading it. It is pretty crazy how infinitely worse each book in this series gets until you get to the 900-page pile of crap that is Breaking Dawn. This woman is a multimillionaire. I will see you next Monday to talk about Stephenie Meyer's Eclipse. And yeah, bye guys.